Okay, I'm so excited to bring this episode to you today. It is a guest interview, which we have not had yet on the Happy Hippie podcast. And I'm going to tell you all about the guest right after the intro. So stay tuned. You really do not want to miss this episode. Welcome back to the Happy Hippie podcast. This is a podcast that aims to explore all the areas in life that contribute to bringing us greater happiness. I am your host, Amanda McCormack. I am a registered yoga teacher, a nutrition coach, and a personal trainer, as well as a Girls Gone Strong women's coaching specialist. So in this podcast, we take deep dives into different wellness topics, products, and mindsets that help you feel better mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I believe that happiness is a journey and that this podcast is here to help navigate you through that journey. So join us as we explore different paths to happiness and share them with you. Okay, so I met this guest on a bus, literally on my first full day in Hawaii. The craziest story ever. I don't think I actually told you about the full story about the flight over and the crazy night I had to spend. I ended up on the wrong side of the island totally by myself. Another day, we'll deep dive into that one. But yeah, I woke up on the wrong side of the island and I had to get to Hilo, which is on the complete other side by myself, and I found a bus that could take me there, but it's like a 4-hour bus ride, and it's also, I heard from some people it was kind of sketchy, so I was like, great, let's do this. So I show up to a Target. It's like a sketchy bus stop, and I'm literally surrounded by like 6 homeless men, and I have a big rolling suitcase because I obviously packed to stay for like a very long time. So I'm waiting outside this bus stop. I'm actually talking to this homeless man because he like would not leave me alone, and he kept trying to show me his missing toe. I did see it. I wish I didn't. I'm thinking of it right now. But anyway, I'm standing there. I'm kind of like surrounded by this van, and like some other homeless guys were like talking to me, and I was like, this is it. I'm about to die on the bus ride to Hilo. And then I look out into the distance, and there's a girl standing like 10 feet away from me, and she's like all in white. And I was like, I am going to go stand next to her because 1, she looks cool, but 2, I also like didn't want to keep talking to the homeless guy that probably had sepsis. So I was like, and I walked over there. We ended up getting on the bus when we were going to Hilo, and we were the only 2 on that bus ride like the entire time. I'm pretty sure like 2 or 3 people hopped on and off within the hours, but we got like engulfed in this conversation for the entire bus ride to the point where I don't think I've ever been so present. Like she's so lovely. I love to hear what she had to say. She has a great story, and just like we were talking about so many different topics that my phone, my family was freaking out because I was not looking at my phone. I don't even think I checked the time once on a 4-hour bus drive because we were just talking to each other. Like my whole family was like, hello, are you alive? Like, what are you doing? But somewhere along the line, we were like, hold up, we should collab a little bit. We should do something. And we ended up saying we should do a podcast episode together, and this was back in January, so I didn't forget. It's been a few months, but we made sure to make it happen, and we're finally bringing it to you. So I'm so excited for you to hear this. And also, I will update you on that crazy story another time, but that's how we met. So it's almost like fate put us together to bring you this episode. This episode will show you how the mind and body are really connected, and it may answer some questions that you have on gut health, how your stress levels can actually impact your body, like physically, digestion, a little bit on hypnotherapy, and how your mental health can actually affect your physical health. It's such a great episode. I feel like it will really benefit you to listen to it no matter where you are in your health journey, especially if you suffer from IBS, chronic bloating, or other gut-related issues. This episode is for you. Okay, so finally, the big introduction. Our guest today is Linda Stu Ludi. So she is a clinical hypnotherapist and a wellness coach specializing in IBS and digestive disorders using gut-directed hypnotherapy. So her evidence-based treatment is founded on almost 40 years of clinical research that blends gut-directed hypnotherapy sessions, affirmation tracks, guided imagery, and wellness strategies that are available on her signature online gut-directed hypnotherapy program, her group classes, and her virtual private one-on-one sessions. It's such a cool topic. So by prioritizing the brain-gut connection and regulating the nervous system, she takes a really holistic approach to promote long-term gut health and balance in the body. So basically, she helps you get lasting relief from IBS symptoms without the restrictions, the diets, and the medication. And the more you listen to this episode, the more you can relate to it, that we all kind of have these types of symptoms, and and it could also be manifesting in a different way. So it's just very interesting, no matter where you are in your health journey, to really listen to what we talk about, because I feel like your mind's going to be blown by the holistic approach that we take in discussing these topics. We also go a lot into, I don't know, I love this conversation. We talked a bit about traveling, mindsets, and honestly, some of the best pieces of advice that I've actually heard. We discuss on following your dreams, perspectives, and I won't spoil it. But let's get into the episode because this one is juicy. Okay, so I am delighted to have our guest with us this week. So again, Linda is a clinical hypnotherapist and a wellness coach who specializes in IBS and digestive orders using gut-directed hypnotherapy. And I'm a big believer in holistic health, that everything is connected. So your gut isn't just isolated on its own, and it's not just about what you eat and like the supplements you take. Your mind and your body are connected. So I'm so happy to have Linda on this episode and talk a little bit about that. So we wanted to talk a little bit about your background and maybe how you became interested in hypnotherapy, or anything you want to share on that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on here. I love this topic. I'm so excited to dive into this with you. And honestly, what led me here was basically my own journey personally. And I think for a lot of people, it's that suffering, that struggle that we go through can often be that gift that we can give to the world in our own way. And so when I was in my early 20s, I struggled a lot with anxiety, depression. I burnt out. I was in school, I was working, I was in an unhealthy relationship, and I just totally burnt out. And I started to develop gut issues, like really painful gut issues. Sometimes I wouldn't even want to leave the house because I was in so much pain. And I cut out tons of different foods from my diet, and it kind of got a little bit more restrictive over time. And tried so many things, and it honestly wasn't until I addressed the mind-body aspect, because I'd never really thought about it. And I think this happens to a lot of people. We can directly correlate, like, I eat food and then I feel crappy, right? Like, the food is the cause. But really what I've come to learn throughout my own journey is that often the not being able to tolerate food is the symptom of a bigger issue, as in your body's not able to digest it in the first place. And so when I started to work on myself and heal my anxiety, and I came across like different teachers, I was reading lots of different books. I really wanted to figure out, like, how do I heal myself? It wasn't just the gut stuff. It was like my anxiety and depression, because that was causing me a lot of suffering. I feel like I was just chronically suffering. I was in this internal turmoil of like sadness and getting triggered, or feeling like life just wasn't really what I wanted it to be. I wasn't happy with where I was. And so it was that exploration of trying different things, looking at different healing modalities, and eventually I came upon the subconscious mind, the power of the subconscious mind, through Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and some different other really incredible teachers. And it's when I came across them that I got really interested. I'm like, okay, so 95% of our daily behaviors, habits are like rooted in the subconscious mind. It's not happening on a conscious level. So that's where I decided to try hypnotherapy. And I was like, okay, I want to get a sense of, can I get to the root? Can I get to the root of what's going on here, of why I'm feeling like this, of why, basically I've been struggling with this my whole life, the anxiety. And so I worked with a hypnotherapist, and within like a few sessions, I was just completely blown away, because my anxiety dramatically improved. My gut started, like, all the symptoms started to dissipate. And it wasn't long before I noticed I could eat those foods that I just wasn't able to eat before. And I felt so much better. I felt so much more at peace with myself and the world. I stopped worrying about those things that used to just, circulate inside of my being. And my whole life changed. Like, I became so much more balanced and centered in who I was as I healed a lot of the past and all of these things that maybe I picked up along my life. So that's when I got really interested, and I decided to study to become a hypnotherapist. And I also decided to specialize and focus in digestive health, because I experienced a huge transformation with it. And not only that, so many people don't know this, but gut-directed hypnotherapy, like for IBS and digestive disorders, this is one of the most researched forms of hypnosis ever. Like, there's like 40 years of clinical research showing it to be an effective treatment for IBS. It's just not that known. And so I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I mean, there's barely anyone doing it. And look, they've got all this amazing clinical research showing that it's super effective. And like, you can heal your gut without making necessarily dietary changes, even though that's important too. But it's a holistic approach. I think if you're struggling with some health issues, you want to look at different aspects to get a more complete and whole
so I wanted to talk about
restoration of your entire
essentially
body.
if you've been struggling
the more
with your
holistic
gut
approach, essentially.
and
so that's
you
kind of what got
feel
me
like
there.
stress is
Yeah,
affecting your
no,
gut,
I
if
agree
you
literally
feel
with
like
that,
your
that whole
emotions could be
mind-body
triggering
approach
your
to things,
flare-ups,
because
if
the
you've been
first thing you think of when you
suffering
think of
from
gut health
chronic
without
bloating or
having like
pain
any
or
background on
motility
it
issues,
is, oh, I'm eating
and you
something
tried
that's upsetting
changing
my
your
tummy,
diet and
but it might
just
actually
hasn't
be stuff that's
really
in your
resolved
subconscious or
things,
things throughout your life,
then
like
I invite people to
emotions
book
from
a
the
call
past
with
or
me.
stress.
I have
Those
a
things
free
influence your
30-minute
body.
clarity
Your body
call where
holds
you
on
can
to those
jump on
things.
a call,
So do you find that
figure
with a
out
lot
what's
of your
been going on
clients,
with
like
you,
emotions
and
from
then
the
I can help
past or
guide you in
stress,
the right
maybe even like
direction,
limiting
see if we're the
beliefs
right
come
fit to
up
work
with this
together as
topic?
well.
And
I
think it's with
a
majority of my
online
clients,
community that's free
actually,
for
to be
anyone to
honest. They
join.
tell me that they're
And
chronically
it is
stressed.
the gut healing community.
Sometimes, actually very often, they'll tell me something happened around the time their gut issues started.
But
So it could
essentially,
have
it's to
been
really
a
help give
passing
free
of a loved
resources,
one,
tools,
a
there's
really
lives,
stressful
there's
period, a
trainings
big
on
life
gut health
transition,
and
like
the
moving
mind-body
across the
connection.
country.
Because I really want to help as many people as I can to have
challenging
this
relationship that puts
transformation
so much
and help get to the
emotional
deeper
stress on the
root
body,
behind what's
and
actually
so
going on.
that's
Even
affecting,
on these
like the
deeper
core of it
levels, not
comes
just
down
the
to whether
surface.
it's
We want to go deep
experiences
and
that you're
help to
having
create
that
some change
put you
so
in
that
this like
people can get
dysregulated
control back
state,
over their lives.
or
So
just
I have
chronic
that.
stress. It's affecting
And
your nervous system.
If anybody ever
and
wants to
that's
reach
kind
out
of the
with
key part
specifically what
here,
you've
is
been
that your
going through
nervous
too, I'm
system
happy to support
is, think of it
in
like
any way
the
that I
highway
can.
of communication,
Really
where
want
everything
to
is running
just
through,
spread this
like from the brain to the
message
gut to
behind
different parts of the
how there's
body
so much
to make
more to the
everything
gut
work
than
properly.
just what we put in
But
it,
if you're stressed or you've had
nutrition-wise.
trauma or intense
Yeah,
experiences,
no, thank you so
this
much
can
for
get
sharing all of your
imprinted in our
expertise. And we're
body.
going to have all
And if
of
it's not
Linda's
dealt with,
socials
it
in the
doesn't just
bio
magically
below,
leave.
which
These can be
your
kinda like
Instagram
they stay
is
with
Gut
us on
Directed
some level
Hypnotherapy,
in the body.
right?
Yes.
And it can
Okay,
dysregulate
perfect.
our
And then we have all the
nervous
clickable
system.
links, so if you don't want to type
And
it in,
what
I'll put all
happens
the
if we have a
URLs down below in the
dysregulated
show notes, so you
nervous
can
system,
click
or
it,
chronically
go give
stressed or
Linda a
anxious
follow,
or
and then you can check
worrying,
out her websites
is
as
that
well.
the signals that are sent from your brain to your
I'd love
gut,
to hear from
Yay.
you.
they can get
and it was
inhibited. They're
so
not working
wonderful
properly
being
because
here.
your
Like, it
body
was
is
so
in
great
a
talking
state of
to you
survival.
after our,
It's in fight or
magical
flight.
experience on this bus
And
in
in fight or
Hawaii.
flight, your
Yeah.
digestion is not
when we
thyroid.
met.
So it affects your motility.
Thank you so much
like
again. This was so
constipation,
great.
diarrhea.
And as
It
usual,
creates
guys,
a
all the
more
information, like I
hypersensitive
said, will be in the
gut
bio
as well. It
below.
can cause
I'll put
leaky
my
gut,
socials
which
in
is
there
like
as
an
well.
increased
If you listen to this
permeability in the
episode,
gut.
make sure to tag both of us and post it on your
pain,
story so we
like
can
just
see
challenge,
who's
like
enjoying
cramping,
it.
pain,
Send us
bloating,
any
all of these
questions that you
things
have
can be
about it, or
caused
if you did
from
any of the journaling prompts
stress
or
in the nervous
exercises that we actually
system.
talked about.
And so it
Let us
doesn't
know what
matter
you think.
sometimes
I'd
what
love
you
to
put
hear
in your
about that.
body.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah.
necessarily the food. Sometimes it is.
Until next
Which is why
time,
it's really
I
good
hope
to
you
work with
guys
a
have
dietitian as
a
well.
beautiful
But
day, and
sometimes
thank
it's
you
not.
so much for
Like, I have
joining on
lots of clients
the
that'll say
Happy Hippie
one
podcast.
they're so annoyed
Wishing
because
everyone an amazing
they just can't
rest of your
figure
day.
out what it is. Like they'll eat one thing one day, like they're safe food, and they're fine, and they eat it the next day and they have like a horrible stomach ache, and they think it's the food, and then they're like cutting more things out when, you know, it can be the state that you were in when you were eating, not just the food itself. So that's a really important thing, because not everybody understands to this level, like how important, what state your body's in terms of being able to digest actually is.
Yeah, no, I have heard about that with IBS in particular too. Sometimes there could be like trigger foods for people, and then there's foods that aren't those trigger foods, but they still get some sort of reaction or flare up. But like you're saying, it's the state that you're in at that time. It all comes down to like the stress levels that person's experiencing or something else like subconsciously.
Yeah, definitely. And like IBS, for example, it's a diagnosis through elimination. So they will test you with what they can, and if they don't find anything, they will diagnose you with IBS. And it's actually considered a disorder of the gut-brain interaction. So it's literally a disorder of how the brain and the gut are communicating with each other. And stress is the thing that breaks that communication cycle and makes things all like wacky and uncomfortable. Yeah.
Could you go a little bit more into the connection between gut health and your brain and like overall mood coming into like stress or feeling like upset or happy? Like, how does that work a bit if you were explaining it to somebody that didn't know anything about that connection? You already dove into it really well, but I want you to like explain it a little bit more. I
deeper.
I think. Yeah, please.
There's so many layers to this. Yeah, so if you think of like your brain, and what connects it to your gut is the vagus nerve. So it's essentially a nerve that runs down the base of your brain down into your gut. And from there, the signals for everything to be functioning properly, all the systems, all the organisms, all the cells to be working, it gets traveled through this vagus nerve. Now, they can function, your brain can function independently from your gut. Your gut can actually function independently from your brain. So it's actually, you might have heard that it's considered your second brain. And that's because it actually can function independently. And it has over 100 million neurons in your gut itself. It's a really important information intelligent system of your body. Like, a lot of people have felt having this gut instinct of you go somewhere and something doesn't feel right, or you might feel different emotions in your gut, in your stomach. Like, it's an emotional processing center of your body, which is another, I'm going to put like a little like insert here, which is if you have trouble digesting emotions or your life, you might have gut problems as well, because it's the processing center.
Yeah, it ties into that.
Yeah, it totally ties into that. And so basically this information center, which is your gut, it can, like, let's say, I'll give some examples of like emotions that you would experience there. Sometimes fear or anxiety, like before doing a presentation, or if you're scared of having a conversation with someone, or something's come up, sometimes you can really feel it in your gut. I don't know if you've ever experienced that.
That's literally the name, like gut feeling, when you like have like an intuition or like it has a meaning. That's why, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And just like our heart is intelligent in its own way too, but so is our gut. So it's important to look at the deeper meaning behind the gut. And essentially, your gut health is also connected to your mental health. So they've done some studies they did on rats where they checked the microbiome, and they saw that they did like a fecal transplant between like these like depressed rats, and they gave it to these healthy rats. And then they found that when they did that, the microbiome of these depressed rats, when they transferred it to these other rats, that it made them actually depressed. And so the microbes that are in your gut, in fact, 95% of your serotonin, which is stored in the gut, that's like your mood stabilizer. That affects like your mood, your energy, your sleep. It's all stored in the gut. Wow. And so people who are more depressed and anxious, they have different bacterias in their gut as well. So what you eat's going to impact your microbiome. Stress is going to impact your microbiome. There's tons of things that can impact it. So it affects your mood, it affects your thoughts, it affects your way of feeling emotionally. And how you think and feel also impacts your nervous system response, which can then impact your microbiome. So it's like a two-way. They're working interconnected. It's not one or the other. They're both interconnected with each other. So if you work on one, you're helping the other. But ideally, you want to be working on both at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds very similar. I've had a lot of clients come in where they want to prioritize the training aspects of things, or they're focusing on like macronutrients and that level of things. But sometimes I feel like when I speak to them, I find that they just need to take a step back, and honestly, stress management and things that tie to, when they talk about their symptoms and they're talking about that they bloat a lot or they have these symptoms, it reminds me that maybe we have to focus on something else, or I should direct this out to somebody else at this point, because before you can take those steps to work on your body, almost like you were saying before, if your body's in like fight or flight, we need to focus on that first, or focus on healing that, focus on the mind, focus on the gut, the things that are triggering you to have that stress response, before we can put literally physical stress on your body and focus on like working out and things like that. So it's just interesting to hear that as well, because I feel like sometimes people don't think about this issue coming up first, or that they should check this out before stepping into maybe like an exercise regimen or a different type of nutrition program.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's one of these spectrums, one of the dimensions of health, right? You've got nutrition, you've got physical exercise, maintaining your body, and you have your mind. What are you thinking? What are you feeling on a daily basis? What are you feeding yourself mentally? Like, where is your stress coming from? And because essentially, you could be eating all the right foods, you could be working out regularly. If you're super stressed and anxious and you don't love yourself and you're worried about everything that's going on in your life every single day, like that's like essentially junk food to your body. That's you're not necessarily in optimal health if you're in that state, no matter what you do externally. You also want to be working on internally building health and acceptance and love and healing emotionally as well, peeling away the pain from the past, these old programs, these old paradigms that maybe just aren't serving you anymore, that are causing pain and suffering. If you want to move forward in life and you feel like you're stuck, or you're like having self-sabotaging behaviors or beliefs that are keeping you in a certain life or a certain way of being, you really want to actively work on that. I would say in my life, doing that inner work is what allowed me to be free, to really experience deep inner peace, happiness, fulfilling relationships, deeper connection, because I feel more connected to myself. I can do more with my career, like I can process through whatever fears come up with owning my own business and going out and doing bigger things. And so I think it's a really important part of like your overall quality of life. It's what's going on internally.
I agree. And you can take exactly what you're saying into tons of different alleyways of life as well. When you almost have that awareness to notice what's going on, or reflect and look at the way that you're looking at things now, because sometimes we're just moving so fast with things, we're not even noticing how our body is reacting to something, or how we're feeling, or how like our stress could be impacting it. I know when you said that, it reminded me when I used to think about my food with a little bit more of a negative behavior. So when I was in college, I was so into the labels of food that I would almost be stressed eating a certain type of food. And I feel like having that energy while I'm eating that food, my body is almost in a stress state because of the way that I'm looking at it. Like, I'm not looking at the food as it's something that's nourishing me or something that's adding to my life. I was looking at it like, oh, this is, I don't know, like a brownie. I'm not supposed to be eating this. And like, I had like all those, the subconscious things coming up, but you don't notice it if you don't have the awareness or have someone to almost like help you notice that.
Definitely. Yeah. I love that you pointed that out, because it's so true. I've experienced that too. And the thing is that your mind is so powerful, and your subconscious mind is always listening to you. What you're telling it, it's always listening to you. So if you're saying, this is going to make me sick, or I'm going to have a bad reaction to this, or I shouldn't be eating this, or I'm going to get bloated, or I'm going to be in pain if I do this, part of you is listening to that, and part of you, sometimes you're priming your body on a subconscious level to have a worse response than maybe would have been if you didn't have that. Not to say necessarily it would completely eliminate any response, but it definitely can escalate things. It definitely can prime your body to basically listen to what you're telling it. And I know clients who experience, like, before they've even eaten, they already start to feel their stomach hurting, because they're already thinking about how they shouldn't be, like, this is gonna, affect their gut. And so there's such a deep mind-body connection there.
That is like, you're almost creating that situation for yourself, which I feel like that's almost like life, right? The way that we look at life, like, we're creating these scenarios a little bit, and your mind is powerful in that way. But I'm curious, like, what do you do to deal with the subconscious, or like when you're working with a client, like how do you go into the subconscious in a way that correlates with their gut health?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I dive into that, something just came to mind, which was this really interesting study about how powerful the mind is. And then I'll talk about basically what it is.
About the mind.
Yeah, they did a research with hypnosis where they took a group of people, and essentially they had poison ivy, and then they had, like, I think it was like a maple leaf, and they put people into a state of trance, into a hypnosis, and they would they would do some, hypnotic techniques So essentially, they would make the person believe that they were rubbing, for example, the maple leaf on their hand, but it was actually the ivy, the poison ivy, and they wouldn't have a reaction. And then they would do the opposite, where they would put the maple leaf on their hand, and then they would say it was the poison ivy, and they would actually like go out in a rash.
What?
So just them believing in it was so powerful to affect the skin actually reacting to the plant based on their belief.
Wow.
So that's how powerful your mind is and what you believe to be true.
Yeah.
So
and
that's
the
like a very direct.
with the physical, like it literally made something physical happen because of what the mind was believing.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly. So it's super powerful. And so in terms of hypnotherapy and working with the gut-directed hypnotherapy, which is what I'm trained in, is where we focus on soothing and calming the gastrointestinal tract. I guide people through guided imagery where they're really seeing their gut healed, repaired. They're seeing like soothing energy moving through it. We imagine it like whatever's going on. If I'm working one-on-one, it'll be specific. So if you're having bloating or constipation or whatever, we work with that to create imagery to tell your body a new program. To essentially, we're healing and changing the response patterns that the body is having to things, to have a new response pattern. Also to train the body and the nervous system to relax. And through doing that, you can actually help to relieve so many IBS symptoms. Like the research has shown 70 to 80% of people will have a significant reduction. That means like 50% about reduction in their symptoms. So that's like bloating, abdominal pain, constipation, diarrhea. And it also relieves anxiety. It's super good for anxiety and helping to improve your mindset and beliefs around things. So we feed the subconscious mind a new program, and then you feel into that your digestion's working well, that you can easily eat food, your body's absorbing all the nutrients. We go through all these different types of suggestions essentially to feed the mind and the body. And in between sessions, I have a lot of recordings that my clients listen to once per day, just like a 15-minute recording. And that helps to really compound and accumulate all the work that we're doing together, because when it comes to changing the subconscious, repetition is key. So there is some practices between sessions, and we'd see each other once a week for an hour over the course of 2 months. So that's typically how I work with people, and that's where I've seen the best results. And another part, because I've been developing this for years now, I help people learn how to emotionally process what's coming up in their life and how to have a tool that they get access to, a recording, so they can do it in their own time. If something comes up in your day, someone said this thing and got triggered, or you felt betrayed by a friend because they did this, or you had a stressful day at work, you have tools, essentially a toolbox to help you move through that on your own. Because I believe that, it's great to have people to work one-on-one with, but eventually you want to be able to self-regulate. That you can do it on your own, that you know how to do it on your own, and you practice it so that you can achieve deeper levels of peace and comfort in the body and just feel good again, get control back over your life again.
I love that. That's so amazing too, having that resource, that toolbox for themselves. Because like you're saying, it's like if you think about your sessions as almost a classroom, it's like doing the homework. And then once you when you write something down, it physically stays in your head more. So it's like when you're doing it on your own, like your own choice to sit down and come into the present moment and come into your body and like notice what's going on to calm those things down on your own. That's just awesome to know that it's almost like not only do you get that classroom experience, but you get the real life experience of applying it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Because having that as part of a routine in your day, self-care, relaxation, centering yourself, grounding yourself, like doing yoga, like what you do is so important. We can't just run on like, we can't just be busy all day doing things all the time. Our body gets tired. It needs to rest. And so many people they completely override their body and do way too much, and then it burns out. So
do you find that burnout is something that comes up a lot for people, like triggering those symptoms, whether it be from work or literally life, like what you're saying, running almost fumes?
Yep, definitely. Burnout, chronic anxiety, traumatic or intense life experience. And also, I've seen a common thread of people that are struggling with anxiety tend to have more gut issues. There's also correlations between having trauma in early childhood and developing IBS as well. So there's a couple different correlations there. And I think that has to do with our nervous system. Like if you experience trauma, it shocks the nervous system too. So you want to get it back into balance. Because gut is one way it can manifest, but stress can manifest in so many ways. Your skin, your hair, your nails, like so many different things that it can affect. And so it's just one way that people experience that coming through the body.
That is true. Even in yoga, we literally have poses for different things because they release or unblock when you have something physically stored in the body. When they say trauma stored in the hips, and that's why hip openers almost make you cry, or like,
yes.
Yeah. So it sounds so similar to that in a way, where different parts of your body hold on to things. Or even when you guide, I mean, I bet you experience this too, when you take somebody into like the hypnotic state, when you're relaxing them, sometimes when somebody tells you like, oh, release your jaw, you don't even know you're squeezing it, or like your tongue is like pressed up on the top of your roof of the mouth, and then they're like, yeah. And you're like, wait a minute. And you can like slowly go through, and having somebody guide you through that to actually take you into that relaxation is like a whole different feeling. And going into that, like you were explaining the different parts that you go through the hypnosis with the person.
Yeah.
Do you have any more examples on like what it would be like if let's say I was a client and I'm expecting like my first session, like how you guide them through completely?
Definitely. Yeah, because hypnosis is a little bit of this mysterious thing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what it is essentially is that we're relaxing the mind and the body to enter a theta brainwave state where you're more receptive. It can even be an alpha state, just a relaxed state of mind and body, because that's where you're more receptive to receiving suggestion for your subconscious to make changes and for you to make positive changes in your life. So what I do is I guide people through a process of relaxation, of centering the mind and body. We use specific hypnotic techniques to go deeper into the mind. And then once we're in those deeper states, that's when the more therapeutic stuff comes in terms of connecting the brain and the gut, really having the imagery or feeling the different parts of your body that you want to change, and seeing that change happening, seeing the healing happening, seeing your intestines, like if it's blocked, you see everything flowing through it effortlessly. Or you can, use your imagination to kind of give those areas what they need. And it really works. Like I have a client, I worked actually so many clients that struggled with constipation, and in a couple weeks they're going multiple times a week, where maybe before they just went once, maybe twice, and then they can get back to having regular bowel movements just completely naturally without medication. And so yeah, it's very customized. So we would go through that direct suggestion. Every session is different. I kind of go through a different experience every single time, but the container of it is a little bit similar in the fact that we relax and go deeper into the mind. And then you go on a little inner journey of healing. And then sometimes I will also specifically work with the parts of a person that are struggling with a specific problem. So an example of that would be anxiety around going to the bathroom at work. Maybe that's a thing. And so if that's a big problem, or food fear, like afraid around meal times, afraid of eating this specific food, then I would do a very interactive session where we communicate with the part of that person within the subconscious mind that is afraid or that is anxious, and then we get to the root of it. So we go through a technique where we can actually help get to the root. We can also go through techniques where we help get to the root of why the body is manifesting these symptoms in the first place, to get a good understanding. And then we do that root cause healing from there. And it's really interesting what comes up in those sessions, that people can get a lot of a deeper understanding as to why their body is doing what it's doing. And I've never had a case ever where the body was trying to actually harm the person or was working against them or fighting against them. Often it's like some form of a cry for help or something that's been unresolved, or it's trying to protect the body from, you know, trying to conserve energy. Like there's so many different things. It's different for every single person, but really figuring out what's happening. Like, why is the body making things so difficult?
That's so interesting. That reminds me too, almost when you were saying that, when your mind does that with things, most of the time it's because your mind is like, fear is your mind trying to protect you from something, and it's like manifesting in your body in a different way. But that's so interesting. Have you had like, because I know when I do like my own meditations, or I've done like guided hypnosis before, when there's almost questions being asked and like I come up with an answer like I've never had before. Have you had clients have any like really interesting like aha moments that can come to your mind? Because I find that so interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens like a lot. Like when I think about it, it's very personal for each person, but when they finally feel what's been going on or why their body's been doing that, I feel like so many people can come to such a deeper level of compassion and love for their body, and just completely flip the perspective of what's going on and how they're contributing maybe to their body being in this state, and what they can do to, like, not in a powerlessness, but in a like empowerment of like, oh, I get it now. I can understand this more. So definitely, and I know people who've found that there's specific situations or people that are at the root cause of it, and so we do healing around that to help, because you can't change your external environment, but you can change your internal experience. So if there's a big heavy charge, emotional charge, pain, hurt, grief, we can work with that, and we can help to heal and resolve and process that strong emotion that hasn't been healed yet, essentially. And so that can also be quite surprising for people as well, to see where that root is.
Yeah, that's so cool. It's like taking somebody who almost, I mean, everyone, I feel like in points, they almost feel helpless when their body's doing something and they think they don't have a control on it, but you're almost like bridging that gap between, you have a little bit more of awareness and a connection with your body than you think you do in that time, you know?
Yeah. And I have like clients that have come to me and they're like, I don't think I'm stressed. And then we go through a session and they're like, I've never been that relaxed in my entire life. And then as we work together, they start to realize the difference between being relaxed and being stressed, because they had always been a bit stressed in a way. Like they just didn't know how deeply relaxed they could actually feel. So they didn't have much of a like scale to go from. But since we start working together, they're like, oh. And then from there, it really, really helps them, because then they know how to counterbalance that, and they have tools and techniques to get into the rest and digest state where everything works better.
That's just so amazing to like go from that state and you're like, this whole time I've actually been like in this level of stress. I feel like that's how it is a lot of the time, this day and age, and taking the time to literally self-care, like caring for yourself and going within and finding out why your body's doing these things or why you're feeling these way. It makes you feel like less crazy, because there's actual reasons or things in your subconscious that you're not thinking of all the time, but it's almost like reflecting in your life in ways that you wouldn't have known.
Definitely. I mean, you must have noticed, like, between New York and Hawaii, I think those are polar opposite places. Oh, yeah. Like, in terms of, like, stress and relaxation, just the contrast in people.
Like, the way of living and...
The way of living and the normalization of stress in New York, for example.
Yeah. It's so interesting, too, like, when I was, like, doing work there, we had different managers, different departments. The way that, like... you would like you were saying earlier, I would have like a gut feeling going to talk to somebody about like something at work, and they'd be like, yeah, no problem, like or they'd speak about something that I was expecting to be so like intense, and they're like, nah, yeah, you just got to do this and this and you'll be good to go, instead of like getting like a verbal yelling or something. And
oh my god,
yeah, and I feel like your mind almost expects those things, so when you actually come to that point where you're like, wait, this is how it can be, it doesn't have to be this way. It's so crazy, like when your mind's been living in a certain state for a while, like how that can be experienced almost.
Totally. The kind of like bracing for something bad to happen, and you live somewhere where everyone's so chill and they're like, no big deal. Like, that's so nice.
Yeah. Is that what it's like for you too, where you are in Tulum, or is it like?
Kind of. Yeah, it's kind of here. I mostly live in Playa, but I go to Tulum really, really often. Yeah. It's just like an hour away. But yeah, it's just so like, I walk outside and people are happy. Everyone's saying hi to you. Everyone's on, we call it Mexican time, which I guess is like wherever you're on island time. Like, everyone's late to everything. Yeah. If you have like someone coming to fix something at your place and they're like, I'll be there at 10, expect them to be there at any point in the day. Even 4 p.m. they'll just show up.
Like, I did it, I'm here. Like,
yeah, they just show up anytime. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I like the more ease and flow that comes with living in a type of place like this. Just like Hawaii is so easeful and flow and synchronicity, just like a portal. Like, here is a portal of synchronicity too. You would love it here so much too. But it's just such a different way of life. It's magical. It's amazing. It's so healing and nourishing, and I just love it.
I agree. I feel like, I don't know, like, environment really does play a big factor. And almost like we were saying a few minutes ago, sometimes you don't notice things until you actually try it or you actually get there. And I feel like that could be life advice in any way, because you literally don't know if you like something or won't like it, or how big of an effect it will have on you, or how small of an effect it will have on you, until you actually do it or you take that leap. Yeah. And that could be on anything. It sounds really vague. It could be on trying a new service. It could be like going to a new place. But when you actually put yourself there and can see how something affects you and how it can change your life, because I don't know, you're used to one thing, but if you don't try the other thing, you really won't know. It'll just be a romanticized version in your head, or a stigmatized version of what you think something is, until you actually try it.
Definitely. And I think every new thing, new experience, it expands your worldview. It expands your way of understanding everything. Like, I think one of the biggest examples is travel. Because if you have only experienced like similar type of culture, or you've only been in certain type of places, when you go somewhere that operates like nothing like back home, it really deprograms certain things that you just think are normal. And you're like, oh, it's actually just not necessarily normal. It's just part of the culture.
We were talking about something similar when we were talking about the water before, like that. But do you have any examples? It could be that one. It could be something else that might have been like, it could be a culture shock, or it could just be something that really like took you out of what you thought was normal.
Like, in terms of in Mexico?
It could be. It could, I mean, whatever's coming to your mind, honestly.
So an experience. Well, I mean, honestly, being like, yeah, totally. Like, the way things are here, there's certain places that you can go, certain communities, sound healing, events, drum circles, plant medicine, yoga centers here. You go there, and everybody is so loving, kind. They treat you like they've known you forever. You just go in and everyone's like wide open. And for me, that's paradigm shifting, because I'm from Canada. Like, I'm from British Columbia in Canada, the west coast of Canada. And it's beautiful and people are very nice, but people aren't very open. You know, you don't walk down the street and say hi to everyone, and like you can like enter this super deep soul connection level of just like friendship, and you know, maybe never met them before. And here it's just, every time I go out I can meet someone, and there is some incredible person that just feels so aligned. And what changes about that is just it's just changed what I feel is we're so normal it's become so normal for us to be used to certain social settings where when you can experience something that's like only what you could have ever dreamed of, and you didn't even dream of it, you just like experienced in it, and you're like, wow, this is possible. Like, people are actually can be this loving and nice and accepting, and I can fully be who I am and not be judged for it. And it's such a flourishing ground for you to be free to be your authentic self. Because I don't know about you, I struggled a lot with fear of judgment of others and fear of what other people think of, and having to play small because I was weird, so I didn't want to be judged for being a weirdo. you know, like having different interests.
Or literally even like we can go into it in a minute, but like taking almost like an unconventional route in what you're doing for a living, like I can relate to that as well. But what you were saying too, like living in the community or living like the section of Hawaii, like the coast that we were on, it's same thing. They have a lot of drum circles. There's yoga every block down the street. You can find a place, or those ideas are just like accepted a lot more. I feel like you can find them in cities and things, like you can find anything, I feel, if you search for it. But being in an environment where, like you're saying, the people are so inviting and you have all these resources, I actually found myself a lot of the time when I was talking to people in groups, I would, in the beginning especially, I would give a lot of disclaimers where I would be talking about something I like, and I would like put in a little disclaimer where I was like, oh, I know this is weird, but, and then I've had people almost like check me and they're like, it's not weird to talk about what you like, or it's not weird to like fully let loose. Or the drum circles, the first time I went to a drum circle, I literally couldn't dance. Like I was frozen on the outside. I remember like looking in and seeing people just dance like crazy, like express themselves in a way that like I didn't even know I could move that way. And then I forced myself the next time I went to go in, and I was so awkward. And then within like 2 weeks I was going every week, and I was just like letting myself go and be authentic, which was something I actually didn't know I wasn't letting myself do where I was before. And it was almost took like a new environment, a new experience, which was scary at first, and then new people to like allow myself to come out a little bit more and be like who I really am. But I didn't know I was even blocking that. I thought I was like very authentic before. And then when I was able to like go into this experience and see that, I was like, wow, there's even more growth in this than I thought there was. And I would have never known that unless I put myself in that type of environment, or just like spoken to these people and was able to like find out like a new chapter about me, a new like unlocking, you know, a new milestone.
Total. I love that. That's so powerful. And it's so true. It's like it's showing how like you didn't even know. You didn't even know that there was a part of you that was blocked until you went through and literally moved through it physically.
And it's like, I feel like in life it's like that, or like when you go in yourself or just try new things, or the journey of self-discovery, like it just doesn't end in a good way. I feel like it would be boring if it did end and you're like, this is it. Yeah. But it's like, it's so fun how every chance that you have in life, like you can choose kind of like what you want to do next, or you can try something. And again, if you don't like something, then you don't have, it's like if you try food for the first time and you don't like it, you don't have to eat it again. You know, like you can experience something, or put yourself out there, or try a new activity, or go to a new event that you never went to before. But like when you actually do it, like it's almost like climbing this ladder, and you're kind of, I feel, aligned. Like, you know, when you like something, or if something feels good, like you're inclined towards it a little bit more. I'm being very vague, I think, but I'm thinking of like 100 different examples. I don't know if that like opens anything for you, if you feel anything like that.
Yeah, I think you just feel the resonance. You can feel if it feels right or it doesn't feel right. I feel I can feel it in terms of like, is this something that's going to serve me and support me and help me grow? Or is this maybe not quite the right thing for me to grow? But I would say what's helped me evolve and grow the most over the last, basically over my lifetime, is deciding to not go the conventional path, because I could see, I would project myself down the future. I'd be like, what? I'm supposed to like be working like for the next 30 years. And so like my dad would always be like, get a government job. You need a pension. And like, you know, he would be like, become an optometrist. And I'd be like, I don't even like eyeballs. Yeah. Like, you know, like when I was really like a little kid. And I was like, no, I'm like, wow. And I would look around and no one seemed happy. No one had time. No one like had energy. It's like, I don't want that to be my life. That feels like really sad to me, to be doing something I'm not passionate about, that I don't love. And I spend more time doing that than even like being with my family or my friends or my loved one, you know, like we would spend so much time at work. And so I started dreaming. I started creating my vision. I started creating vision boards. And over the years, like now I'm in my dream that I only ever could have imagined before. And it took like really getting out of my comfort zone and totally taking leaps of faith and moving to different countries and having no money at all sometimes to do anything, you know, and just like fully being like, I'm not going to give up on my dream. I'm going to find the thing that I'm passionate about, I can help people with. I'm going to live where I want to live. And it worked out. It worked out because I was I just didn't give up.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you shared that. And even when you were talking about that and you said that from even like a young age or just throughout your life, like there was something in you, whether it was like a ringing or you just knew like this is not where I'm supposed to be, or this is not where I'm supposed to be, but you knew there was something more, or you knew like this path is not something. It's almost like when you heard like emotions or like an indicator system, when you feel a certain way about something, it's for a reason. You know, if you dislike something or like something, there's a reason that gauge is going off for you. You know, there's a reason you're pushed away from something or you're drawn towards something, and you followed that, you almost acted on it. How did that journey go for you, finding or letting that path unfold? Did you find like as you took steps towards it, more opportunities came to you? Was it like scary if there was a challenge? Just a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. Like incredible moments and experiences and connections that were transcendent and amazing, and incredible challenges, like, you know, just incredible challenges, incredible heartbreaks, incredible like feeling like things aren't going to work out, you know, all of these things. But ultimately that's part of life, and we're always going to be faced with challenges. Otherwise we wouldn't be growing, you know, like being here on earth in this body and choosing to have a life here and living our life by design. It is the path of ultimate growth, and there's always going to be challenges along that journey. And so even when the challenges came, maybe it would knock me off guard for a while and maybe something would happen, but I would always know what I truly wanted, and there was no way that I was going to settle for a life that I don't love. Like even if I didn't love it in the moment building up to it, I'm like, no, I'm just going to keep doing it. And so yeah, I would say like I don't know how to describe it. It's hard to put my finger on it. It just felt like this, I can't let my life go to waste. Like I feel like there was a moment like my potential, like what I could create, what I can be, I cannot let that go to waste. I don't want to feel like I'm just letting my life go by and not really living it. That was like my worst fear. It's not death. It's just that I like don't truly live, and I like have a like life I don't even care about, you know?
No,
like
exactly.
That sucks more.
I can relate to that, but like, I don't know, my heart just feels so full hearing you tell that story, because like I feel like a lot of people can relate to it. I can. And it's just that inner knowing that you have so many gifts, and you share your talents in your business too. So it's cool that you're able to make an impact and help people with what you're doing, and you're able to do something that you're passionate about, and you also get to live your life because of it. You know, there's benefits for you and there's benefits for other people. Like, how does that make you feel that that's the life you're living?
It makes me so happy. Honestly, sometimes it like really hits me almost every day, to be honest. I'm like, really? Like this is my life? I'm living like my view is the jungle right now, with just like incredible windows. I wake up to the jungle views every morning. I'm a block away from the beach, from the Caribbean Sea. You know, like I have the most amazing boyfriend ever. He's so incredible, so loving. I love my business so much. I have the best community of friends here. I'm like, this is just like, how is this even possible? Like I have to have to remind myself every day to be so grateful for where I am and how this all came to be, and it's just so much gratitude and appreciation, really.
Yeah, well, you can hear it when you talk about it too. Like I feel like that attitude adds to it, you know, it influences when you have that gratitude for what you have in the moment. Like it just continues to like build and create more for you almost.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel that.
Do you think you have any advice for anybody who's listening who they want to follow their dreams or follow something they're passionate about, or take a big leap, whether it be like building a business or moving somewhere else, or any bit of advice that you feel kind of can come from your heart for anybody that is listening?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say take time to slow down and create the space. If you don't even know what that thing is, either create the space for the ideas to come, because oftentimes we're so busy, we don't allow space for our inner voice, for our soul to to allow what wants to come through us to emerge. So I think creating space and stillness within ourselves, whether that's meditation or going away and, disconnecting and journaling about your vision, or what would be like, just like if money weren't an issue and where you lived wasn't an issue, like what would be your dream life? Just like tapping into in a playful way, because, you don't want your mind coming in and thinking like, but that can't happen. Like if you took away all the doubts, just like journal about what that would be. Like what could it possibly be to be living your dream life? And then focus on that vision and create something. Like I do this thing personally that I've found has helped me create most of my dreams into reality. Is a mix of many, many things. But scripting is incredibly powerful. It's where you journal and you project yourself into the future, like 1 year, 5 years, 10 years into the future, whatever you want. And you essentially write down as if you're journaling as that person in, let's say, 5 years from now. So you write down in the present moment, speaking in the present moment as that person, living your dream life. And you tap in all the emotions, all the feelings. So examples of it would be like, I love, like, let's say my dream was to move to Thailand and have an online business. Oh my God, I love waking up every day looking at the islands and like my view in Thailand. Like my life is so amazing. I feel so grateful every day being here. I just feel like my life is filled with beauty and abundance, and my business is thriving, and I can't believe how much it's grown over these last years. I feel totally financially free. Like you just write as if you've already lived that. And I do this like multiple times a year. I script out my dreams. I think that could be a good place to start. I have a million ideas, but I'm going to say
I love that.
that's a good place to start.
No, that is great. That's great advice. And that's also a great piece of something that you can physically practice. So I would love for anybody who's listening to try that out. Like, it's almost like you're creating that vibration of like you're feeling you're feeling gratitude for something in the future. So you're almost like aligning with that vibration. It's not like lack. You're not lacking that you don't have that thing. You're feeling the appreciation for having something. So you're almost aligning with that. So that's a great practice. I love that.
It's really powerful. Yeah. I love it too.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing that. I also had 2 questions.
Yes.
I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting. It kind of builds on what we're saying, but it could go anywhere. The 2 questions would be if you have the best piece of advice that you've ever heard and maybe the worst piece of advice that you ever heard. If you followed a piece of advice or somebody told you advice and you were just like, no.
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice, I think it's just, I don't know if it's someone that's told me or it's something I've just learned through research and what I do and everything that I've learned. But I would say the key point in, I feel, living the life that you truly desire is understanding that your external reality is a reflection of what's going on internally. And you can tell what's going on internally by looking at what's showing up externally. So if you don't like what's going on outside in your life, in your external reality, your relationships, your work, your whatever it is, you want to work on clearing out the internal, and things will start to appear to match the new level that your internal world is at. Like if you look at them more on like a frequency level, that is, I feel, it's been like a secret key for me, really changing my life dramatically, like exponentially, is doing the inner work, and then the outer world starts to match that change that you make inside of yourself. And the worst piece of advice I would say was from my dad. It's like when I was growing up, he used to tell me, you're not supposed to love what you do. You're supposed to struggle.
No, I know.
Because I would always have all these dreams. I was like, I want to live in Japan. I want to do this. I want to do that. And he would just be like, no, that's not what life is about. You're supposed to work hard. You're not supposed to just love what you do. Like, you're supposed to struggle. You should get like a good, safe government job and all of these things. And if I did that, I would be miserable.
No, exactly. It's a projection of something inside. Yeah, and that everybody's gonna have a projection like that. That's so funny you shared that. I feel like it's a good question to ask, like anyone who's listening to, like ask yourself that question and then find out why that piece of advice doesn't align with you, and they can also help kind of point you in a direction you want to go. I feel like it's always like, I had that happen to my dad's had the similar thing, but it was almost like a limiting belief. Like I grew up seeing both of my parents doing like overtime work, so I always had this thought in my head that I had to be doing the most, like I had to be exerting myself heavily. And I found that pattern when I was like in college. I would take on like extra shifts because I associated with more money, and I was just burning myself out. But it's interesting how that comes up. But thank you for sharing.
We take on a lot. Yeah, we take on a lot from our parents' belief unconsciously, consciously, like what we see basically growing up.
Yeah, I feel like this episode too, it's just like a good taking time to reflect inward. Take a moment to think about what you think you know and maybe question it, or think about what you see on the outside and see how maybe the inside could be reflecting it on lots of levels. I feel like it all kind of tied into that theme. Like everything we were talking about kind of wrapped into that. Like it actually went back to the same things we were talking about when it came to like the brain and the gut and your outside experiences. It's like going within and seeing what's going on there and why the outside is having that reaction.
Yeah, it's all interconnected. It definitely is. Yeah.
That's so crazy. I guess for our last few questions, is there anything that you would like to share? Is there a topic that you'd like to explore a little bit, or a question maybe you'd like to answer, or something that you just want to share, get off your chest relating to anything we talked about today or not?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about if you've been struggling with your gut and you feel like stress is impacting your gut, if you feel like your emotions could be triggering your flare-ups, if you've been suffering from chronic bloating or pain or motility issues, and you tried changing your diet and it just hasn't really resolved things, then I invite people to book a call with me. I have a free 30-minute clarity call where we'll jump on a call, figure out what's been going on with you, and then I can help guide you in the right direction, see if we're the right fit to work together as well. I also have a online community that's free for anyone to join.
Ooh.
And it is the Gut Healing Community. I'm sure there's going to be a link in the podcast notes, but essentially it's to really help give free resources, tools, there's lives, there's trainings on gut health and the mind-body connection, because I really want to help as many people as I can to have this mind-body transformation and help get to the deeper root causes behind what's actually going on, even on these deeper levels, not just the surface. We want to go deep and help to create some change so that people can get control back over their lives. So I have that. And yeah, if anybody ever wants to reach out with specifically what you've been going through too, I'm happy to support in any way that I can. Just really want to, just spread this message behind how there's so much more to the gut than just what we put in it, just nutrition-wise.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing all of your expertise. And we're going to have all of Linda's socials in the bio below, which your Instagram is Gut Directed Hypnotherapy, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
perfect. And then we have all the clickable links. So if you don't want to type it in, I'll put all the URLs down below in the show notes so you can click it, go give Linda a follow, and then you can check out her websites as well.
Yes. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, and it was so wonderful being here. Like, it was so great talking to you after our magical experience on this bus in Hawaii.
Yeah, literally.
When we met. Yeah.
Thank you so much again. This was so great. And as usual, guys, all the information, like I said, will be in the bio below. I'll put my socials in there as well. If you listen to this episode, make sure to tag both of us and post it on your story so we can see who's enjoying it. Send us any questions that you have about it. Or if you did any of the journaling prompts or exercises that we actually talked about, let us know what you think.
I would love to hear about that. Yes.
Yeah. Until next time, I hope you guys have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for joining on the Happy Hippie podcast.
Thank you for having me. Wishing everyone an amazing rest of your day.